Why did Jesus pray to God if he himself is divine? This question touches the very heart of Christian theology and the mysterious dual nature of Jesus Christ. As both fully God and fully human, Jesus' actions on earth, including his prayers, offer us a window into the divine yet relatable aspects of his existence, from his heartfelt conversations with the Father to his moments of intense solitude in prayer. Jesus not only modeled a life of spiritual devotion, but also showed us the power of prayer in aligning with God's will. So why did the divine need to pray? In the Christian faith, Jesus is not just a historical figure. He is God incarnate, the Word made flesh. This divine nature allowed him to perform miracles, forgive sins, and ultimately conquer death itself. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Jesus wasn't just walking around performing miracles 24/7. He also led a fully human life. He got hungry, he slept, he felt deep emotions, joy, sadness, even anguish. This dual nature isn't just a theological point, it's about relatability. Because he was human, Jesus understands our struggles intimately. He's felt what we feel. And as a mediator between God and man, Jesus bridges two worlds. His prayers often reflected this role, reaching out to God on behalf of humanity, bringing our pains and hopes before the divine. Think about it. His prayers were not just rituals, they were heartfelt conversations with his Father. They showed his dependence on God, modeling perfect trust and obedience. So when we see Jesus retreating to pray, it's not just a divine being following protocol. It's a man living out his faith in the most human way possible, through prayer. This blend of divinity and humanity makes his life not just a story, but a lesson on how to live our own. When we look at the New Testament, we see Jesus praying in moments of joy, before making big decisions, and in times of deep distress. Each prayer is a lesson in itself. Take, for instance, the Lord's Prayer. Here, Jesus isn't just teaching us what words to use. He's teaching us about the nature of God, our relationship with him, and the importance of seeking his will above ours. But Jesus' prayer life goes beyond formal prayers. It's about constant, ongoing communication with the Father. He prayed early in the morning, late at night, and often went to quiet places just to be alone with God. And what's really profound is how Jesus shows us to balance speaking and listening. In the Garden of Gethsemane, his prayer was as raw and real as it gets, expressing deep fear and anguish, yet always returning to submission to God's will. This moment teaches us something crucial. Prayer isn't just about asking for things, it's about seeking strength and peace, even in our darkest hours. Jesus also prayed for others, not just himself. His prayers for his disciples and for all believers show us the power of intercessory prayer, of stepping outside our own needs and lifting up others before God. So what does this mean for us today? It means that our prayer life can be as dynamic and impactful as Jesus was. It's about authenticity, continuous dialogue with God, and a deep concern for the world around us. Throughout the Gospels, we see Jesus experiencing a wide range of human emotions. From joy and companionship to deep sorrow and distress, his life was rich with feelings, each expressed beautifully through prayer. Consider the moment Jesus learns of John the Baptist's execution. The scriptures tell us he withdrew by boat to a solitary place. Imagine the grief, the loneliness, emotions we've all felt. And his response? He sought solitude to pray, to speak with his Father, or take the intense night in the Garden of Gethsemane on the eve of his crucifixion. Here, Jesus is not just troubled, he is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. His prayers are desperate, pleading, deeply human. He asks for the cup to be taken from him, yet always returns to, "Not my will, but yours be done." These moments are powerful because they show us that Jesus didn't hide his feelings from God. He laid them bare, fear, sadness, even despair. It teaches us that prayer is not about presenting a polished version of ourselves to God. It's about being real, being honest about our struggles. And there's also joy. Yes, joy. Jesus gave thanks to God in prayer, celebrated his friend's faith, and rejoiced in the Holy Spirit. These prayers of thanksgiving enrich our understanding of prayer as a space not only for petition, but for celebration. So what can we take from this? That in prayer, no emotion is too great, too small, or too heavy to bring before God. Jesus showed us that our prayers could and should reflect the full spectrum of human experience. Jesus' life was a mission defined by divine purpose, yet his journey was shaped by choices that reaffirmed his commitment to God's plan. Each prayer he made was a step towards this alignment, showing us the importance of seeking not what we want, but what God wants. Take, for example, the feeding of the 5,000. Before performing this miracle, Jesus looked up to heaven and gave thanks. This simple act of prayer was an acknowledgement of his reliance on the Father, ensuring that his actions were in line with divine will. But nowhere is this alignment more poignant than in the Garden of Gethsemane. Facing the imminent pain of crucifixion, Jesus found himself in profound agony. Here, his prayer was a battle between human desire and divine will. He prayed, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours, be done." These words are a powerful testament to the depth of his submission and trust in God, despite his own overwhelming fear. This continuous alignment wasn't just about acceptance, it was about active engagement with God's plan. It teaches us that prayer is not a passive act, but a dynamic conversation that involves listening, understanding, and sometimes yielding to a greater wisdom. And this lesson extends beyond the monumental moments. Even in everyday decisions, Jesus communicated with God, seeking guidance and strength. It shows us that aligning our will with God's isn't just for life's big crossroads, it's for every moment, every choice. Jesus' dependence on God is evident throughout his ministry. He often withdrew to lonely places to pray, seeking guidance, strength, and communion with God. These moments highlight his reliance on God, not just in times of need, but as a continual source of his strength. Consider the storm on the Sea of Galilee. When the disciples panicked, Jesus, calm and composed, rebuked the wind and the waves. But his peace didn't come from human confidence. It came from his deep trust in God's power and presence, a trust fortified through his prayer life. His prayers also reflected a total trust in God's plan, even when it led to personal sacrifice. The night before his crucifixion, Jesus didn't just acknowledge his fear, he surrendered his desire to be spared from suffering, trusting completely in the Father's will. This wasn't passive resignation, it was active trust. Trust that God's way, no matter how difficult, was ultimately for good. It's a powerful model for us, especially in our own moments of doubt and fear. Jesus' example teaches us that trust in prayer isn't just about believing God can do what we ask, but also accepting what he deems best for us. It's about letting go of our illusions of control and embracing God's greater vision for our lives. Let's ask ourselves, how deep is our trust in God? Are our prayers marked by a genuine dependence, or are we still holding on to the reins? As you ponder these questions, remember each prayer is an opportunity to deepen that trust, to let go a little more, and to strengthen your faith in the one who guides us all. Jesus used prayer not just as a ritual or duty, but as a means to establish a deep, personal connection with God. This aspect of his spiritual life offers us incredible insights into the nature of prayer as a relational bridge between the divine and the human. In the Gospels, we see that Jesus didn't pray in a distant or formal manner. His prayers were conversations filled with emotion, sincerity, and intimacy. He addressed God as Abba, Father, a term of endearment that speaks volumes about their close relationship. This term Abba is deeply personal, much like a child calling out Daddy. It shows us that Jesus saw his relationship with God as deeply familial, personal, and filled with trust and love. And it wasn't just about words. Jesus' prayer life was characterized by its consistency. He often withdrew from the crowds, seeking solitude to spend time with his Father. These moments alone were crucial for nurturing his spiritual life and maintaining his mission aligned with God's purpose. What does this mean for us? It means that prayer can be more than just a list of requests or a daily obligation. It can be a dialogue, a time to share our deepest worries, joys, and questions with God, just as Jesus did. Jesus also showed that prayer involves listening, not just talking. In his solitude, he listened to God's voice, seeking guidance and strength. This two-way communication is essential for a meaningful relationship with God. So, let's challenge ourselves. Are our prayers conversations or just monologues? Are we taking the time to listen, to really engage with God on a personal level? Even in his darkest hours, Jesus turned to prayer. The night before his crucifixion, as he faced unimaginable stress and sorrow, he sought solace in prayer, reaching out to his Father for support and strength. In the Garden of Gethsemane, we see a vivid picture of Jesus' humanity. He felt deep agony, enough to sweat drops of blood, a condition known medically as hematidrosis, which can occur under extreme stress. His prayer during this time was heartfelt and profound. He asked for the cup of suffering to be taken away, yet ultimately submitted to God's will, finding peace in this surrender. It's crucial to notice that Jesus didn't receive immediate relief or an escape from his circumstances. Instead, he found the strength to face them. This teaches us that prayer isn't a magic wand to remove problems, but a way to gain the courage and peace to endure them. Jesus' example shows us that prayer can be a refuge, a place to find peace amid turmoil. It's about connecting with God, laying down our burdens, and being reassured of his presence and support. So, I encourage you to think about your own prayer life. When you face trials or sadness, do you turn to prayer? Do you allow it to be a place where you can find peace and comfort, just as Jesus did? Remember, the peace Jesus found wasn't in the resolution of his problems, but in the presence of God. Let that encourage us all to seek that same presence in our lives, finding peace not in our circumstances changing, but in God walking with us through them. Throughout his ministry, Jesus faced immense challenges and critical decisions. Before each major event, whether it was selecting his disciples, teaching large crowds, or facing his accusers, prayer was his constant recourse. Consider the moment before he chose the 12 apostles. Luke's gospel tells us that Jesus spent the whole night in prayer to God. This wasn't just routine, it was a deliberate seeking of divine guidance and strength, ensuring that his choices aligned with God's will. This pattern of seeking divine wisdom through prayer was not just about making decisions, it was also about empowerment. Before facing his trials and ultimately the cross, Jesus fortified himself through prayer, drawing on the strength that comes from divine communion. These moments of prayerful reflection highlight how Jesus didn't rely solely on his divine nature. He actively sought the Father's wisdom and strength through prayer. This teaches us about the importance of prayer, not just in seeking direction, but also in empowering ourselves to follow through on that direction. It's a powerful reminder for us all. When we face our own challenges, whether they're big decisions or everyday struggles, turning to prayer can provide the wisdom and strength we need. It's about tapping into a deeper source that can guide and sustain us. So how do we apply this in our lives? It starts by making prayer a priority, not just in times of crisis, but as a regular practice. By doing so, we keep our connection with God active and strong, ready to support us whenever we need it. Reflect on how prayer could strengthen and guide you in your own journey. Remember, like Jesus, you can draw on prayer to navigate life's complexities with wisdom and courage. Jesus didn't just pray for himself or his immediate circle. He prayed for all who would believe in him through the message of the disciples. His prayer in the Gospel of John is incredibly profound. He prays not only for his disciples, but for all future believers, asking for unity among them as a testament to the world of God's love. This prayer, often called the high priestly prayer, shows Jesus' desire for his followers to be one, just as he and the Father are one. It's a powerful call for unity and love across all boundaries, ethnic, cultural, and historical. By praying for us, future generations, Jesus set an example of how we too should pray for one another. It reminds us that prayer can transcend time and space, connecting us with believers we've never met, from places we've never been. This global aspect of prayer encourages us to think beyond our local community. It invites us to intercede for believers facing persecution, those in hardship, and those spreading the gospel far and wide. Our prayers, like those of Jesus, can have a profound impact, bridging distances and strengthening bonds among Christians everywhere. I challenge you to consider, how broad is your vision when you pray? Are you including the global community in your prayers? Remember, our prayers can be a force for unity and healing, echoing the heart of Jesus' own prayers.